Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Leadership Lessons with Cheri, and I'm excited to be with you once again. Wow, we made it through a cold week here in Houston. I'm recording on Sunday, the 23rd of February, and I think it's going to be our last cold day. Fingers crossed. If you're watching the video, you see me double crossing my fingers. In the past, I'd always said I enjoy the cool down here in Houston. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy a cool down of the winter, but I am not loving this cold, damp weather this year. I know I shouldn't be complaining because I talked to my family this week. They're still up north and they've been very, very cold. And that is not a place I want to be. So I know many of you around the country and around the world are dealing with colder weather than us, but I just feel like we're just not equipped for this. Of course, I have heat in my house and I'm cuddled in and I'm safe and all of the things, but it is very uncomfortable, very, very uncomfortable. But it's gloomy today, but it stopped raining, which is sign number one. And it's like in the 50s instead of where it has been, which growing up, I always felt like that was summertime, right? Um, yeah, I mean, it's a real thing up north, but nonetheless, it's not summertime yet, but we are supposed to get into the 60s and 70s this week with sun. I think a lot of it is the sun. Even one day this past week, it was chilly outside, but the sun was shining and it didn't feel so bad. It's those gloomy, windy, wet, damp days that are just chilly and ugh. Anyway, I haven't run in a couple of weeks because I have not wanted to go out there. My bones just, they get achy now that I'm getting older. I've been working out, but not quite the same. And I don't know. But anyway, I'll get myself back on track this week. So, having said that, hopefully you are in a place where you are safe and warm and February is almost over. Hopefully you're meeting all of your goals there. I'm excited for this upcoming week for sure. And I will tell you, I actually have a first round interview. I don't know any outcome right now from this. I'm just starting the job hunt, but I did decide working on two big things for this year in 2025. Of course, still building and growing my leadership business, but also working on applying for an alternative certification program here in Texas for teachers, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I finally took the first step, and we'll see. It's a 2-year process, so it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of grit, a lot of perseverance, a lot of determination, but I'm working on that, and things are moving well, one step at a time for that program. And then also, I have decided that, and I knew this would happen going back to work in a school, that I miss leading people. And I'm doing it informally right now. I mean, it's just who I am. And it's helping this school move forward and make progress. Saw a lot of wins in people I'm coaching and working with this week. But it's time to get back into that role. So this position is going to be a bit of a challenge. It is head of schools, and it would be over a set of schools, over their principals and staff development and all of the things. But very exciting because I know I've done the work before in the role of principals, and now it would be a great new challenge for me to be able to coach and guide the principals in doing the work. So it'll be looking at it from a different perspective. So fingers crossed on that one also that everything goes well. So that's this week. And yeah, just excited to get back to it. Finally feeling my purpose again. So great news there. We have to do that, right? And especially since I've been talking over the last few weeks in this series about not just do you have to have the skill set and not just the skills to think through things as a leader, but also to lead with heart, because that's what I stand for. But also, what are those other nuances that we need to have that keep us going on the hard days? And so, if you've been listening to this for a while, you know we started this series of becoming the best leader we possibly can be. And it all stems from my TEDx talk that I did on February 1st, which hopefully is going to be releasing here in the next week or so. And it really was geared toward the teaching world. However, it applies to so many different areas. And so I'm excited for everyone to hear that talk. And I've pulled little pieces every week to talk about how, as leaders, we can actually utilize these strategies to help us continue to become the leader we were born to be. I started with remembering the why, right? Finding our purpose, knowing why we did this, because we definitely need that when times are hard. And then we moved into planning for success, because you can't be that influencer, that role model, have that impact if you're not showing up every day as your best self. Then last week, we talked about being organized and running your day. And now this week, I'm taking this concept of classroom management and adjusting it to, on yesterday's episode, if you listened, to how we run our lives and be able to manage the people in our circles and all of our things. And then now today, how this is going to affect your leadership. So let's get started. Now, when I became a leader, I was pretty young. I left the classroom and became kind of an informal leader um, about 5 years into my, little less into my journey in education. So I was about 29 years old when I started to make that transition. And I actually went through a couple of positions, right? I was um, an instructional specialist for my campus. And then, of course, the next process is to move into an assistant principal role. And in between, I was a district coordinator over some programming, which instructional specialist, I did a lot of coaching. So that's where I learned all of those great coaching skills, how to look at things from different lens, how to be able to take something and then help the person improve. When I moved into the assistant principal role and the coordinator role, although I was still doing evaluations and coaching and helping people grow because people trusted me and they knew my skill set, the role itself was much more managerial. It was much more managing as an assistant principal operations of the school, managing like student discipline and procedures and things for the school, and then managing transportation and textbooks and things, because when I was in the role, it was still, we still had textbooks. Then as I moved into the principalship, I learned that being the leader, you have to be able to lead, but you still have to be able to manage. Because even though I had a great assistant principal my first years, and honestly, most of my years as a principal, I did still have to have my hand on things. I still had to have a pulse of, are things moving in the right direction? Is the assistant principal doing what they need to do? And it's really funny because I spent time with my daughter yesterday and we were talking about her next steps, because she's getting to that place in her career. She's left the classroom and she's already has her master's and trying to determine what next level she wants to go to. And she says all the time, I would love to be the principal, but I don't want to be the assistant principal. She said, I'm not good with that management piece. But here's the thing, and this is what I always respond. And she'll say, Mom, I know what you're going to say to me. You have to go through that rite of passage in order to be able to step into the role as principal or leadership of any organization. You have to follow the right progression, so to speak. Because if you don't learn how to manage things and you don't realize what all is entailing the things that have to be managed within your organization, and you think you just want to jump to leader, there are going to be things that you forget. And although leadership is really about empowering and supporting and building those great cultures and really being able to get people to follow your vision, you also have to be sure that the things that need to get done get done, right? And if you don't know what those things are, you're going to miss something. And one little thing can totally make things fall apart. Now, as I spoke yesterday on Strong Inside and Out, I spoke about how when we're working on ourselves, being a strong woman or a strong person or trying to make change in life, we manage things. I used an example on the episode, if you didn't listen to it, about after I transitioned from college and came here to Houston as a new teacher, I was bogged down. I was overwhelmed. I was struggling. And the first thing that I let go was my physical activity, my eating habits, my health and well-being. I gained a lot of weight. I felt horrible. I was tired all the time. I got sick. I was stressed. But I knew that in order to get a system back in place to manage my health and wellness, I couldn't go from 0 to 60. I had to take one step at a time and I had to start figuring out the biggest levers. And that's no different than what we do in a leader role. Our management pieces are much more intricate, right? As you run an organization, and they affect so many people. But you have to think about, if I'm going to adjust something, if I'm going to change something, if I'm going to put something in place, I want to do it in a way that is going to be sustainable and that we can all feel success. Now, my role when I went into the principal seat, not on purpose, it kind of fell into my lap and then it just became who I am known for, which could be very helpful with this interview this week. I'm hoping, was to go in to organizations, to schools that were failing, that were struggling to get the results needed in order to be seen as a successful school. And we all know if the school is not producing the results it needs, it's going to affect a lot. It affects the students and what their future looks like. It affects the teachers and where they get to go after they leave you. Because if you've worked at a failing school and you didn't fix it, nobody's going to want you in the seat, right? It affects yourself and your trajectory of future employment and how you move up. And then it also affects the community, because if the school is not good, nobody is going to be happy, right? Students, teachers, parents, district people, nobody's going to be happy. Now, I was fortunate. I went into these organizations as the new person coming in, the outsider. I wasn't necessarily the one that contributed to the problem. I was more coming in to fix the problem. Now, I'll get to a caveat on that in a moment, but when I came in on that role, the first thing that I started looking at immediately was, what could the management pieces actually aspire to be? And how could I make change there? Because that was the easiest place to make change. How do we put systems in place, and what systems are they? How do we put policies and procedures in place, and what are they? And are there any already there that seem to be working if they were followed consistently? Or do we have to just start from scratch? There's a lot of backside to it and a lot of processes to get to that place, but it also gave me an option to do something that was a pretty high lever. So for example, every school that I went into, student discipline was out of control. It was just out of control. And that's a management piece and a leadership piece. The leadership side, of course, is we needed to build relationships and get students to feel successful in the classroom so that they didn't want to be out of the classroom. We also needed to lead our teachers and build and grow our teachers to where they felt empowered to be able to give high quality instruction and engaging lessons in the classroom to keep the students in the classroom. But we also had to have a system for how we are building that piece, what's happening in the meantime. Because that first part, that leadership piece, that vision and mission piece, doing all of that takes some time. It doesn't happen overnight. However, if you can have a system in place that manages when something goes wrong, that can be implemented quickly, people, all of your stakeholders, will absolutely see results fast. And once they start to see those results, they buy into you more, and they're able to believe that, wow, I made these few adjustments. Maybe now I could be successful making more adjustments. And it just starts to breed more success. That's the management piece, or one of the biggest management pieces I see with leadership. If we know that something is not working, we've got to step back and be able to adjust and be able to find out why it's not working so that we can get everything back on track, because it's really hard to be meeting with a team member and talking to them about growing them and building their skill set and moving them up in the organization if they're feeling burnt out and overwhelmed because the managerial pieces are dragging them down. And I can tell you this, I feel like when we step back and really do this deep dive analysis in any organization, because I've also guided people through this process outside of the world of education, when people say they're burnt out, overwhelmed, stressed, and they want to pivot into a different role or a different company, 99% of the time, well, let me back up, 50% of the time, it is because the systems are not in place and they're spinning their wheels, working very, very hard, but not seeing results. The other 50%, I believe, is the leader, right? If the leader is micromanaging, if the leader's not taking care of them, or they're coming in ugly every day, nobody wants to be in that environment. But a big majority of this is systems. Now, I mentioned I wanted to go back to when I went to do the actual turnarounds, those first years in the schools that I led, I was the new person coming in. But I stayed at this last school for 8 years because the first 3 years we saw a lot of growth. And then we started to experience things that were hurdles, big hurdles. And I was part of the hurdle. I had to figure out how to navigate some things that I wasn't ready to navigate. And it made me learn a whole lot, again, back in a learning curve, because we never stop learning, even after those many years of experience. But I also saw where I contributed because of my learning curve, and I had the need to fix it, right, before I could move on. So a few years in, the first hurdle was Hurricane Harvey, and everything that rocked our world. We had started school. We were in it about 2 to 3 weeks. I can't remember exactly. And then we were off for 5 weeks. And when we came back, it was like starting school all over again. And honestly, when you start with a brand new set of people and a brand new set of students and a brand new school year, and for those of you who've been in education, you get this, but for those of you who are out of education, I would say it would almost be like restarting your business after shutting down for a significant amount of time. It takes 5 to 6 weeks to get everybody acclimated in. So now we were like 15 weeks behind, but the state, they still expected the same things from us. And I didn't want us to get back into a place where we were going to have to be digging ourselves out of this hole. And so I had to learn quickly, how am I going to fix this? What are we going to do? How are we going to pivot as a team? Now, the positive part of that was I already had my people on board with me. These were my staff members that I had been hiring over the years. I've been growing and building. They were stressed and they were overwhelmed because many of them had also been affected by the hurricane and their homes were devastated. And that causes a whole different kind of pressure. But they already trusted me. And they knew, because they had been with me long enough to know I could get us in the right direction. I still had my assistant principal with me, which she and I were an amazing team. And we were the highest performing school that year. Then we went the next couple years, and then COVID happens. And not only did COVID happen, but right prior to COVID, the school district that I was in built a new school. And they were getting ready to do boundary shifts. So we actually had the changes come right around, well, right before COVID, actually, maybe about a year before COVID. And when the shifts came in, and I knew this walking into this school building, that this could be a possibility. When the shifts came in, it completely changed my clientele, my customer base. And our customers are our students and families. I went from some apartments and some rentals and some purchase homeowners, right? To all of the apartments, all of the trailer parks, and some rentals. I lost my homeowners. I had families living with families. And when we looked at where we were prior to those shifts, as far as academic success factors, and then where we were after the shifts, we dipped. And it wasn't even because we had touched those students yet. And COVID was happening, right? So now we were behind and COVID was happening. And we all know COVID did a devastation on everybody. And it was very difficult with schools. And we're still feeling the effects of students having that whole year of not much, right? And 9 weeks at least of nothing because we didn't know what we were doing. However, once we were able to get back and get grounded again and get my people back on board, again, they trusted me. Did they struggle with coming back to work? Absolutely. I think everybody struggled with that. Did they struggle with the mere fact of now I have to be around people? Sure, they did. But those were outside factors that I did not have control over. The things I had control over, my people trusted me with. And then we were able to do the work needed and again became one of the highest performing schools in the district. So there have been hurdles along my path, even as a leader. It wasn't just that I went in and I was the fixer, but I was able to go, ooh, this is not good. What do we need to do so that we can get it back on track? Not only did they need my leadership because they trusted me, they knew my vision, my mission, but then I had to make sure we had the systems in place to manage. So management, although I believe managers manage and not a lot of managers lead. That's my personal opinion. Agree or disagree, that's up to you. You don't have to reach out to me. It's all okay. I get it that people see that differently. But in my opinion, good managers manage. Great leaders lead and manage. So how do we become the great leader? Well, we need to know what is our current reality? Are systems in place? Are they running? And if they're not, what's causing them not to? And if they are, what's causing them to run well? What's causing our success and what's causing our struggles, our hurdles? And that's a reflection that I did every summer after a school year. I highly suggest that would be a reflection that every leader does within their organization periodically. With my own business, I do it at quarterly because I'm so new. I'm a baby business, and just like a little babies grow so quickly, right? And hit these milestones so fast. Baby organizations do as well. And I needed more of a reflection time, but you look at those systems and you have to be honest. Yes, it might be uncomfortable. It might sting a little bit because you're putting your heart and soul into it. But when you actually know what the data is telling you and you have this story, because that's what data is. Data is a story. And if the story is going to have a happy ending, you need to be able to catch it as early as you possibly can and make those adjustments so that you can achieve the results that you want to have. And once you do that work, get your key people involved as well, because I'm gonna be honest, I think I'm a great leader, but I don't know everything. I have a very specific leadership style. I have a very specific set of experiences, but there are things that I do not know. And there are things that I know get too near and dear to my heart because I'm also very passionate about the work I do, that I need a separate set of eyes sometimes to be able to say, look, what if we look at this from a different perspective? So gather your troops, your trusted people. And if you don't have anybody, maybe you're listening to this and you are a solopreneur in your business, you're the leader, but you don't have any people yet. Get a mastermind. Get some networks where you can find some people to bounce these ideas off of. If nothing else, talk to your dog because Before I was Cheri Dixon Consulting, I was a girl and her dog, and the poor dog heard everything. He didn't respond to much, but he got to hear it all. But sometimes just talking the processes out as a last resort can be very helpful as well. And then, as I mentioned before, you've got to find the things that are going to be your biggest bang for your buck. Find the highest lever items that are the easiest to change, to implement. Doesn't matter what they are, but they're going to have big, big gains for you because your people and even yourself are going to feel more success when things start to improve. And the faster they improve, the faster they feel success and start to have this belief that now I can make more change, because change is scary. Even if it's just within yourself, it's really scary. And until you feel like I made this change for the right reason, it's going to be hard. And in the process, make sure, leaders, that you're out there having a pulse on all of the things going on. If you have somebody in charge of your operations, you should be meeting with your operations person and knowing exactly what's happening. If you have somebody in charge of hiring, you should be meeting with that person and knowing exactly how they're hiring, what their criteria is, and honestly, having the last check before the person comes on board, right? These are systems. These are management pieces. This is how you manage the world of leadership well, so that you as the leader, you have all that in place, you do that work, you schedule it out, and the rest of your time, you can stay focused on the vision, the mission, the building and growing of people and their talent, empowering people, building great relationships with your communities, with your stakeholders, with your clients and customers, with your team members. Because then that's how you take everything to that next level. And I will end with this, y'all. If you feel like you're a great leader, but management was not your thing, you surround yourself with people that you trust on your team that complement your areas of concern, your vulnerabilities. Because to be great, we have to be great all the way around. It doesn't mean we have to be great all the way around solo. It means our organization has to be great in every aspect. And I think one of the best qualities of the most effective leaders is knowing this is where I need help and then seeking out that help. All right, y'all, that's everything that I have for this week. Hopefully these little sessions have been helpful. I know none of us started leadership to just go in and be average, right? To just scrape by. We want to be that great leader. We want to take care of our people. We would not have stepped into these roles because they're hard if we didn't want to continue to have an impact on the world. So take these pieces and run with them. And if you know somebody who is not listening to the show, share this with them, because this stuff is free. And I charge money for this stuff on a typical basis to do workshops and things. And why not get these free nuggets every week, right? All right. Have an amazing week. Wish me luck on my interview. And I'll see y'all next week right back here on Leadership Lessons with Cheri.